Hello, my name is Mariana, and today this is a reading for Pisces. So Pisces, as usual, I'm doing a reading with my own tarot deck, so the cards that you see are from this deck. So, interestingly enough, again, the death card is here. It's not, the first cards, but it's coming actually right at the end. And actually, yesterday I was noticing that the readings that I did so far in April, all of them had the death card in the first part here on YouTube. And to me, well, I think one of them had the death card in the extended, but they had all of them the death card in the reading at some point. And here it is also for you, Pisces. But I feel like what is coming through today for you is the realization that you have been pulling things from the depths of you, that now all of this is coming to the surface with so much potency, with so much momentum, with so much wisdom, to be honest. More than I feel like the momentum is coming from you, because it's like you might feel this like you are re-emerging from the depths. You are coming to the surface of your self-confidence, your self-esteem. It's like you're regaining all of that. It's like you're becoming passionate for life. You are falling in love for life again. You are inspired to do whatever you have to do and go through whatever you have to go through. Because I feel like until this moment, it's almost like you knew how close you were, but you knew also how you had to pace yourself. Because if you let the momentum take over, it's like it would be too much mentally, especially because it's almost like the entire process here that I'm seeing, I'm going to show you the cards, Pisces, but it's something like going through a mental burnout and, making your way out of it and finding your way through it in a way that you're not going to be harmed, or there are not going to be any future damage. It's like if this is resolved in a way that it seems like you are resolving it in a slow pace, allowing yourself to go, step by step, it seems like this is going to be dealt with once and for all. And once you make your way to the surface of the water, it's like you're free. Essentially, you're free from the baggage of that, or you're free from, well, perhaps we're talking about you learning that lesson so it won't need to be repeated. So we're beginning with the High Priestess, and you see here how there is this part in the middle that it was showing me something like an anchor that is being pulled from the depth of the ocean and coming to the surface, but with great momentum. So there's a lot. It's because these sides are, the waves, or like the impact of this reaching the surface after coming from such a long way, deep in the ocean. So all of this is just talking about this. Well, it could bring relief, but it's more like a it's like a it's big, right? It's like this punch in your stomach, but it doesn't feel uncomfortable or harsh. It's just like this, oh, finally, finally, finally. It's like you had to give everything that you could, because you're showing up here as the Queen of Wands. So there's a lot of strength in here. But actually what I was seeing with this Queen of Wands, because to me the wand suit, sometimes it brings this image of a tree, and I feel like this is almost like the seed that is in your heart, because the shape of this crown symbolizes to me the heart. So yes, it's the Queen of Wands, the Queen of Fire, and we're going to talk about the fire in a second. But first, it came through with this overgrown seed in your heart. So it's almost like you were keeping something in your heart and it was squeezed, it was like tight, it didn't have much space. So having this, it could be sort of like a revelation or like an insight, or you know, something that releases you from this compressed feeling or something that you were keeping in your heart. But I don't feel like, well, perhaps it could be talking about sharing it with another, but I don't feel like it. I don't feel like it's talking about it really. It's almost like a burst of, you know, you bursting into tears or you bursting into laughter, because to be honest, there's a lot of joy in this Queen of Fire, this Queen of Wands. With the Six of Pentacles coming next, what I was seeing was like this train tracks, but you know, those very old, very, it's like those first trains that, you know, were built in those very wild, very, just very difficult terrains, very difficult landscapes. So, you know, up in the mountains or in a landscape that is very hard to cross over to get there. So this is, it's almost like this is an old technology, but it was exactly what you needed. I don't know what that means. Perhaps we're talking about, you know, some sort of technique to overcome burnout, or, you know, some sort of depression or anxiety, because the Eight of Swords is coming next and we're going to see that there. But an old technology that took you in a slower pace. So maybe we're just talking about therapy. Therapy being, you know, some sort of like an older technique than the ones that perhaps we do have today, but very effective, very solid, still very reliable. Because it's almost like this was the rescue, in a sense, of your self-esteem, something that was contained in your heart, but it was compressed there. So it was overgrown. It needed to be expressed. It needed to come to the surface. It needed to be released. Because sometimes I see this also as a release, and you know, coming from this depth of the ocean to the surface with this big burst, it's like I'm seeing this as like a big burst of tears or a big burst of laughter, you know, just the expression that liberates something that was taking a long time. Especially because here with the Hangman, which is, you know, typically a card that we could associate with Neptune and, you know, being suspended or being out of reality, seeing that, you know, everything that you tried to engage with, it's like it never took off, or, you know, thinking that your life was not taking off, basically, Pisces. But with the Six of Pentacles and this, the slow track, the slow progress, the slow climb, it's actually what I'm seeing. And it's like I'm seeing this train climbing up the hill, but because climbing up the hill, but it's like, again, it's like this old technology. So therefore, in order to be steady and safe, it needs to be very slow. So each step that you took before you got to this point, because this feels like this this apex, it's like this it's like reaching the top of the hill finally after this long, and it doesn't need to be necessarily long, because, you know, to me, what it would be, you know, what would represent a long climb would be more the Nine of Pentacles instead of the Six. I feel like the Six, it's just talking about the slow pace, which made you feel like nothing was happening, like you were not moving out of place, but you were. It's just a matter of keeping your progress slow and steady, because that is exactly what you needed, or at least that was the best way to deal with the Eight of Swords, which could have been, because what I'm seeing with the Hangman and the Eight of Swords is, if you weren't in this slower pace of this old technique, this old therapy, this old technology to resolve with whatever you were keeping inside that you were not expressing, Pisces. It's like you would have been caught up, because sometimes I see the hangman as, the hook of, like a fishing rod. So something that could have catch you, could have caught you. Yeah, I think that's the right way to say it. So you could have been caught up within the mess. It's like this is bringing like a mental confusion, but because it's too fast. And here, because it's really slow and taking its own sweet time to climb up the hill, it's like you weren't caught up. You weren't caught up in your own thoughts, in your own mind, in your own distortion, in your own way of seeing things, but in this murky water, right? It's like, again, going back to this image of you reaching the surface of the water. So it's almost like the deeper you were inside of this, it's like the murkier the water was, because you were closer to the bottom. So it's like it was very confusing. It was very it's like you couldn't see clearly, because I'm seeing, the bottom of the ocean, but it's not clear at all. It's like you don't have visibility. It's interesting because it's just talking about like the muddy water that you were in, and that if you climbed out of there, or if you were pushed, this could be, the anchor reaching the bottom of the ocean. But because it was there in this place where there wasn't any visibility, it's like you had to allow time to unfold naturally. And it's like not worry about how long it would take, no matter how slow things were or how unmoving you felt like your life was. It needed to be slow and steady so that you weren't caught up in any type of trap, or any type of confusion, mess, mental fog. So what this is talking about also, because it's right below the Queen of Wands, it's talking about the confusion that was perhaps burning you out. And now comes the fire. Because what this is talking about is that if you didn't let yourself go in a slower pace, you would eventually be caught up and be burned by your own fire. So it's almost like you had this ticking bomb inside of your heart. So whenever you were triggered, or whenever you didn't have any type of visibility, and you felt like anything, anything that you did really didn't have any effect, at least apparently, it wasn't moving. It wasn't moving. It was just in this suspended mode. You could have just harmed yourself, but even unconsciously. Because there's also something that I didn't mention about this High Priestess. The thing that is coming from the depths to the surface is like this metaphor for something coming from your subconscious to your conscious, to your mind, that now is completely aware of what was hidden, or what was perhaps, stuck there, what was keeping you anchored, keeping you down in that same position, connected to this murky waters that didn't allow you to see, to have this clear vision, and just kept you in this foggy mental space that could have been, a burnout, actually. Because it's like too much fire could burn you, but you didn't allow that to happen, because it's almost like you learn how to use that fire. Because here it comes, the Death card. And actually the Death card here is coming through with the fire. It's talking about knowing how to use the fire to your transformation and not to your destruction. It's like focusing on the rebirth side of things instead of the death. And it's interesting because it's like you carry this seed that has been growing in you. It's almost like you have been given some sort of intuitive foresight, or like a vision of the future. It's like your intuition has been sparked, and you kept that inside of you, but it was growing inside, and it didn't have any room to grow because it's almost like you didn't express it somehow, or the way that you expressed never felt enough, or it felt like it was always keeping you stuck, or it's like you never get to fully express that potential of yours. But now that it's coming to the open, it's like you have the realization that the hardest part was done. We're ending with the Five of Swords. So this is actually very, very, very visible now. If you didn't have any type of visibility here, and you thought that you were completely caught up, or, you know, suspended, or your life was not going anywhere, but it's just that it was moving in a slower pace than you could perceive, because the technology was ancient. So it's like in order to keep you in a steady progress, it needed to move slow, so it wouldn't keep you in this side of the door. So it's almost like, you know, this is the door that is the transition between the death, which could have been like you being in this murky waters, or you being in the bottom of the ocean and not being able to see anything clearly, but being on the other side and trying to focus, I want to say, on what you would find once you got here, which it seems like you are right now. So the Five of Swords is the liberation from the Eight of Swords, because to me, the eights are this overlapping of two fives, and here we have just one five, which seems to be you. So your issues, who you are with your questions, your doubts, your fears, your things, your stuff. You're not afraid of your stuff, but now you're not carrying any other person's fears or weight or baggage, because it's almost like here, the things that were keeping you stuck down in the bottom of the ocean perhaps didn't come from you, perhaps were taught or were passed down to you or were inherited. So it's like you were attached perhaps to some sort of mental, you know, maybe you do have a history of parents who had depression, or, you know, grandparents who had depression, or, you know, who went through the same situation that you did, or, you know, maybe workaholics, and, you know, parents who didn't have any type of creative outlet, so they just worked and worked and worked and worked and exhaust themselves, right? Or, you know, very stressed, a very stressed family, or a very stressed work environment, or, you know, picking up from the environment and thinking that those things, those issues were yours, but that was the side of the death. And thanks to this, to be honest, thanks to this slow pace that you allowed yourself to be on, and I feel like, to be honest, you weren't aware that you were in this path, that you were steadily coming out of this. But the last step, because it's like getting closer and closer and closer to this door, which is, you know, opening up to the surface. It's like you are resurfacing because you are being reborn, thanks to the things that you allowed to stay at the bottom of the ocean and re-emerge free, in a sense, but not free of your own stuff. It's like with the Five of Swords, it's just learning how to detach with wisdom, with your, it's like your higher knowledge, how to detach from the things that are not yours, that you thought were, and the things that actually are yours, the things that you are meant to carry with you. It's almost like these are the things that are going to show you who you are, because to me the fives talk about the individual, but this is being the Five of Swords. It's like clicking inside your mind who you are. So it's like this mental paradigm that now is shifting thanks to this transformation, because it's like knowing, it's almost like knowing the potential that you were holding inside of you, but that you didn't get to express, maybe because you didn't have space, because you needed to deal with so much stuff that was, you know, baggage from others, that you didn't have time or space or energy or inspiration to do this. So it was overgrown. And now that you are being released, or you are releasing yourself, I should say, because you didn't let the fire in you burn you, but burn the things that were keeping you stuck. No matter how stagnant you thought your life was to this point, it's almost like this is a breaking through, or a breaking free, actually, from these things, or these thoughts, or these patterns of behavior that were embedded in you, that you were, it's like you were misunderstanding them. It's like you were taking them as your stuff, but your stuff, yes, they were here also. See, because one of the fives is here, but there were other things that were included in your perception of this stagnancy, but they weren't yours. So using this fire in you to not burn you, but burn the things that didn't belong to you in the first place, and knowing how to separate them, knowing how to distinguish them, and let go of the things that you were attached to, or that, you know, your mind has attached to. So now you're free. Now you're free to think with just the things that are yours, right? Your questions, your doubts, your fears, but not imposed fears or passed down behaviors. It's like this is what is purely yours, right? I hope that makes sense, Pisces. So I am going to pull more cards for you, as well as the astrological runes in the extended reading. So if you want to join me there, I'll be very happy to see you. You can find the link down below. If not, I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.